Hello friends, a very warm welcome again to another episode of Smart Coach videos, and in this episode we'll be talking about Aurangzeb, and we'll be focusing specifically upon his religious policy. Now, throughout Indian historiography we will see that charges of bigotry has been leveled against Aurangzeb, and there are certain scholars who also try to exonerate Aurangzeb from these charges. However, we know for a fact that during his rule we see a reversal of the policies that the early Mughal in the form of Akbar had put in place in order to bring together both the Hindu and the Muslim elements together and then rule his state in accordance to the religious precepts or tenets of both. In such a way, we see that a heterodox form of a state policy had arose, which gave precedence not to any particular religion, but which tried to incorporate the better elements of both religions, and in that way it tried to promote harmony among the people of India or among the subjects whom Akbar was trying to rule. But we see that during Aurangzeb's rule there was a complete reversal of Akbar's policy, which had been named Sulh-e-Kul. Sulh-e-Kul. Now this policy, as it was as it can be translated as peace for all, or peace with all. We already know from the literal translation of Sulh-e-Kul that it was a policy which was based upon amicability, it was a policy which was based upon amiability, and it was a policy which was based upon bringing together of the two very important religious masses or religious precepts of India, that is Hindus and the Muslims. However, during the reign of Aurangzeb we see that a very narrow interpretation of Shariat is put in place. Sulh-e-Kul came to be replaced by Shariat during the rule of Aurangzeb. Alright, and in doing so there was a very important influence of Mullah Ahmad Sarhindi. Ahmad Sarhindi. Alright, and Ahmad Sarhindi and his precepts of Orthodox Islam was very influential in the life of Aurangzeb. As far as Aurangzeb is concerned, we know that he was a pious Sunni Muslim who followed all the Islamic tenets of the Shariat almost to the point of literal interpretation in certain cases, of course, not in all cases. However, Aurangzeb also recognized that there are certain exigencies of state in which the Shariat itself or the laws of Sunni Islam would not be sufficient, and then Aurangzeb did not flinch from using the Zawabit laws, those laws which are secular or which can be decreed by the Sultan himself, unilaterally, the Zawabits. Zawabits, the secular laws. He was not shy of using the secular laws, however, but at the same time he leaned towards Shariat, leaned heavily towards Shariat, and this created certain destabilizing elements within the state, and we see that it was also responsible for the destabilization of the foundation, the philosophical foundation of the Mughal state that was put in place by Akbar. Now let us proceed and let us look at the individual elements of the policy of Aurangzeb, the religious policy of Aurangzeb. Now, as far as the religious policy of Aurangzeb is concerned, it comes from his own, personal life. In personal life, as I already talked about, he was pious. The personal life, in his personal life, Aurangzeb was a very pious Sunni Muslim. He followed the Islamic precepts, and he was it is said about Aurangzeb that he earned his keep by making copies of the Quran, and by sewing caps which are owned by which were worn by Muslims when they go for prayers. So we see that there was some kind of, in his early life, however, there was some kind of balance in Aurangzeb's life, and he did not lean very heavily towards the Shariat. But some authors have claimed that after the death of Raja Jai Singh, Raja Jai Singh, who was the viceroy of Deccan, who was put in Deccan by Aurangzeb himself. After the death of Raja Jai Singh, who was an influential Hindu in the court of Aurangzeb, Aurangzeb's beginning of Aurangzeb's orthodox religious policy, starts from there onwards. Some scholars have argued in that manner also. And then we see that the year 1659 is very important, because it is in this year that the Kalima, okay, kalma which is inscribed in the coins, okay, it was stopped. The stopping of the kalma, inscribing of kalma in the coins was stopped because it was felt by Aurangzeb that when coming in contact with the non-believers, the you see kalma will be desanctified, okay, or its religious sanctity will you see diminish if it comes at the hands of non-believers. And you see coins are such a thing that it floats around from place to place, okay. So the importance of the kalma or its religious you see its religious glory will get desanctified. So the kalma you see it was stopped, inscribing of kalma on coins was stopped at this point of time. And then of course we see that various heterodox you see traditions which had been incorporated by Akbar into the state structure, they were also one by one removed. So we see that the celebration of Nowruz, which was the Persian New Year, okay, which was celebrated by Akbar in his court, Nowruz was, you see, done away with. We also see that Hindu traditions such as Tuladan, that is, we already talked about Tuladan when we were talking about Akbar's religious policy. Tuladan is the practice in which a Hindu ruler is weighed on a scale and the equivalent amount in weight, okay, equivalent amount of weight in gold or silver will be distributed among temples, or it can also be distributed among the subjects, okay. So Tuladan was done away with. Then we see the Jharoka Darshan, or the you see tradition of standing on a balcony and showing oneself to the subjects, okay, standing on the balcony of Agra court and you see showing himself to the subjects, which Akbar started, okay, Jharoka Darshan, it was also stopped. The imperial musicians themselves, okay, or the Naubat, imperial musicians and music within the court and music within the courts of other you see important nobles also, this was also sought to be stopped, okay. So one by one all of the traditions which Akbar had incorporated into his court structure and in the day-to-day activities of the court, these were done away with, okay, because Orthodox Sunni Muslim Orthodox Sunni Islam does not allow all of this. All of these are prohibited in the Muslim orthodoxy, okay. And then of course we see the appointment of Muhtasib. Now famously Alauddin Khilji had also appointed Muhtasib or moral police, okay, to censor the morality of the subjects, okay, of subjects. These were also appointed by Aurangzeb, okay, famously previously done by Alauddin Khilji. Aurangzeb also appointed Muhtasibs who were moral police who censored the morality of the subjects, and the such things or such imperial decrees such as the prohibition or ban on consumption of liquor, the ban on consumption of bhang, okay, the ban on gambling, all of those things were overseen by the Muhtasibs. Of course, it is debatable as to how successful the Muhtasibs were in you see controlling the activities of the subjects, but they were nonetheless appointed, okay. Muhtasibs were appointed in order to censor the morality of the subjects. Now going forward, we see that one of the most important junctions, okay, in Aurangzeb's religious policy is the year 1669. In this year, by a farman which historians have recovered from you see by a farman which was given to a Brahmin, okay, historians have recorded that Aurangzeb prohibited the construction of new temples, okay. The older ones were of course allowed to stand, but new temples will no longer be constructed, and there were also wholesale destruction of temples in such places such as Multan, Thatha, and you see most importantly Banaras, alright. There were destructions of temples in places such as these, okay. However, certain authors and certain contemporary writers have also pointed out that these places had become hotbed of controversy or conspiracy against the emperor, okay, because these places were famous from lectures by Brahmins, okay, lectures by Brahmins which were attended by even Muslims, okay, Muslims also used to attend these lectures, and it became very controversial, okay, the attending of lectures by Brahmins, you see, by Muslims, okay, Brahmins lecturing and Muslims attending those lectures, it becomes a controversy. And at the same point, there have also been allegations that these places or the religious places of worship in these areas had become grounds of controversy or grounds of conspiracy against the empire, and therefore Aurangzeb took the initiative of destroying or wide scale destruction of temples in these areas. Okay, now destruction of temples is not new to Aurangzeb, because he had previously tried to do so in his governorate at Gujarat also. Okay, he was stopped by his father Shah Jahan. However, destruction of temples take a new turn with the implementation of Aurangzeb's religious policy, and because of the destruction of temple, Aurangzeb's rule has become ingrained in the memory of the you see, Hindu masses of India, and it has been distorted in certain ways, of course, in the you see, historiography of India. Okay, in certain cases where communal tendencies were inflamed, or in certain writings where you see communal tensions were inflamed, these kind of examples are also quite common. Okay, destruction of temples by Aurangzeb. Okay, these examples come up in communal writings also. However, the distortion of history that takes place in such writings is it discredit the writings themselves and discredit the history that is produced by such writers. Okay, so now moving forward, we also see that in the year 1679, one of the most important events of Aurangzeb's reign takes place, and that is the reimposition of the jizya. Alright, jizya, which had been abolished by Akbar, jizya or the tax that a non-Muslim pays, okay, for you see, keeping his religion or for protection of state. Okay, by paying the jizya, you become a zimmi. Alright, once you pay the jizya, you become a zimmi, that is a protected individual of state. Your religion will be protected, your life will be protected, and your property also will be protected only when you pay the jizya. But Akbar had abolished this rule, okay, of paying the jizya. Everybody was considered a zimmi automatically. However, Aurangzeb reimposed the jizya, alright, and by imposing the jizya, the bulk of the, you see, pressure fell upon the poorer classes. Okay, alright. So this has also been a controversial element of Aurangzeb's rule, the imposition of the jizya. Lastly, talking about his religious policy and important measures which were taken by Aurangzeb, we see that Aurangzeb also demanded for the accountants of state, okay, the accountants and clerks of state, clerks and accountants of state were to become, you see, were to be hired only from the Muslim community. Only from the Muslim community. However, it was soon realized by his own officers that this was not possible, okay, because the Hindus have been doing such works for a long time, and they had monopolized these activities of being clerks and accountants, all right, and the Muslims found, and his Muslim, you see, his Muslim, you see, officers, they found it quite difficult to replace the Hindus and bring up Muslim clerks and Muslim accountants. So later on, another decree was passed that at least 50% will have to be Muslim. Okay, how far it was followed, it is unknown. However, you see, at the very beginning, it was found that this would be an impossible decree to carry out. Okay, so there are you see, such examples of religious bigotry, as they can be called, right, are very you see, rife in the rule of Aurangzeb. We see that such examples come about very frequently. However, to what extent was Aurangzeb himself bigoted, we do not actually much know, because some authors also suggest that some of the measures which might seem religiously motivated might also be financially motivated. Motivation for the cancellation or motivation for the abolition of the Naubat or the music, imperial music, might be caused by financial distress, because the state at that point of time, the Mughal state at that point of time, was facing some kind of financial crisis. So we don't know. Destruction of temple in Banaras, of course, some authors have also suggested, as I was talking about when I was telling about temple destruction, okay, when I was speaking about temple destruction, some authors have also suggested that these were hotbeds of conspiracy, and therefore the emperor did not have any choice but to destroy these temples, okay, in Banaras, okay. So such examples are rife, and the motivations behind those examples are sometimes obscure. So we do not much know as to what the motivations were. Even for the imposition of jizya, we can also call it a measure which was motivated by financial exigencies, because the Mughal Empire at that point of time was financially depleted, and therefore by collecting the jizya, some kind of financial financial cushion might be provided, okay. Collecting jizya might provide some kind of financial cushion to the state. So we don't know. However, what we know is the fact that Aurangzeb in his personal life was far from a liberal, all right. He was not a liberal. Liberals such as Akbar or his successors, Shah Jahan and Jahangir and Shah Jahan, they never, you see, dared to do away with the Sulhekul precept, okay, the precept of Sulhekul. How they were liberals in nature, but Aurangzeb was not. He was an orthodox, okay. He had done away, or he had killed his liberal-minded brother Dara, all right. And when he had ascended the throne, his brother Dara was a liberal in his sensibilities, all right. And Aurangzeb had killed his brother Dara, all right. And when he ascended the throne, he ascended with the avowed responsibility of creating an Islamic state in India, and therefore his motivations had always been orthodox. Okay, there is no question about his motivations. They had always been orthodox, and he ascended the throne with intention of creating an Islamic state and following the Shariat law. And it, in essence, was a controversion of the Sulhekul precepts, okay, and therefore we see it created certain destabilizing tendencies within his state. Now, certain scholars have also pointed out about the nobility during Aurangzeb's time. Now, as far as the nobility is concerned, Aurangzeb's time does not see a decrease in Hindu nobles, okay. That must be understood, that Aurangzeb's rule does not see a decrease in Hindu nobles. It in fact sometimes registers a rise in the number of Hindu nobles, because with the capture of the Deccani states, okay, with the capture of the Deccani states, Hindu Deccani nobles were also incorporated into the Mansabdari. Sometimes even Marathas were incorporated into the Mughal Mansabdari, and these sometimes, you see, register as spikes in the number of Hindus in the nobility. The nobility does not suffer much, okay. Nobility and its composition remains, remains cosmopolitan, but at the same time we see his policies, however, were, you see, guided by an orthodox mindset. So this is the religious policy of Aurangzeb. I hope you have enjoyed the video. I hope you will be studying hard. Thank you.